The investigation continues this morning into the classified documents found at President Biden's Delaware home and former office at the Penn Biden Center in Washington, D.C. Republicans have demanded visitor logs of who may have been at those locations, but the president's attorneys are now saying that no such records were kept. In fact, they're not kept at personal properties of any presidents. I'm joined now by Joe Lockhart, who served as the White House press secretary during the Clinton administration. Thank you for being with us this morning. Is this about national security, or is this political posturing on both sides?
Well, we don't really know. I think the investigation is real. My guess at the end of this the conclusion will be sloppiness rather than compromising national security. But the real value, particularly from the PR point of view of the Department of Justice looking at this seriously, is the White House, I don't think, has to answer questions every day. The legitimate organization, the Department of Justice, is going to look at this. And what the public has a right to know is not every document as it's gone through, but what the result of an investigation is. Was it sloppiness? Was it something that did compromise national security? And the fact that the media and some Republicans want to know every day doesn't compromise the idea that the public will be informed. And I think the Department of Justice will be very open about what they find, and the White House is just going to have to deal with that.
But does it come back to bite the White House and President Biden that they did not disclose when the documents were originally found? Some reportedly found before the midterm elections. We only heard about it recently.
Yeah, again, I think I've looked at the explanation from the lawyers, and they seem logical, which is balancing the Department of Justice having the ability to go in and start this investigation versus this becoming the public circus that it has become, the political circus. So I believe that those are compelling arguments. But I think now from the White House and even from the personal lawyers, their point of view should be that these are legitimate questions. The public has a right to know. But let's get the answers, because the answers are more important than the questions.
Sometimes that is true. I think one question people have, and when you're making comparisons, which everyone is doing between the search of the documents found at Biden's property and the search at Mar-a-Lago with former President Trump, is who's involved in the search. We had the FBI going in, seizing those documents in Florida. We had President Biden's lawyers finding them sort of randomly as they're looking at things. Once they found them, though, who gets involved, right? That's the question. Who is now searching documents that could be of national security?
Sure. And as I understand the information, when these documents were found by the aides to Biden, the Department of Justice was immediately contacted, and they took over, or they were working in concert, and will run the process from this point on now that the special counsel has been named. That really is in great contrast with the Trump story, where they spent 4 months in court trying to keep anyone in authority from seeing them. Again, that doesn't mean that the former president has committed a crime, but I think the public can focus on the idea that one side, President Trump's, did everything they could to keep people investigated, the FBI, from seeing these documents. And in contrast, President Biden's team has said, come, look, make your judgments. They're not in court trying to block it.
Right. But not to oversimplify this, it's about a chain of possession of classified documents. And if you have them and you're not supposed to have them at the end of the day, you're in the wrong, right? Just because you say you didn't know you had them doesn't mean you can't be prosecuted criminally.
Yeah, again, I think there's a scale here. I'm not arguing for a second that this isn't an important issue. It is. When you have classified documents that are not secure, it is important. But there is a scale here between sort of, I'll call it sloppy, stupid, and criminal intent. And very much when, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I've watched them on TV over the last couple of days and the last couple of weeks. And intent really is the ultimate question. What did President Biden or President Trump intend to do with these documents if they knew about them? We're not even sure at this point that President Biden knew about them, but we'll find out. But hypothetically, if he did, what was his intention? And that's really where criminal liability comes in.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.